Welcome to Demolition Success Secrets, the podcast that's changing the game for demolition businesses everywhere. Ever wondered how a wrecking ball wielding industry can leverage digital marketing to dominate their market? Well, we've got the blueprints, strategies, expert guests, and more to show you how. Stay tuned, because we're about to blast through the barriers of your business.
Davis, what's going on?
Nothing much, man. I know we were talking pre-roll just about getting to know your area of Florida, and makes me jealous that I'm up here in Charlotte, North Carolina, but that's where I'm based. And, we're pretty fortunate to live here. It's not to get into cliche matters and talk about the weather or where we live, but Charlotte, North Carolina is a great spot. We've got 2 to 3 hours to the west is mountains, 2 to 3 hours to the east are beaches and international airport, a lot of greenery. So all 4 seasons, no complaints. But yeah, we're hanging in there, ready for the house.
That's awesome. Oh yeah. Yeah. And we're still working hard, all of us. I know that business owners and entrepreneurs and contractors, the whole list. I know my team's working hard. I know you guys got to be working hard. So tell me about what you guys do and how you got started.
Yeah, thanks. So Junk Raider is my company. I run it with my business partner, Ted Bullard. We met at our corporate jobs more than that, about 8 years ago, almost 9 years ago now. And we were both—
When you were miserable is when you guys met.
That's right. When we were looking at that corporate ladder, and we were just like, oh, that's terrible. But no, it was a good experience. We got together. He was director of marketing for roughly $300 million company in the technology space, and he oversaw the team that I was on, the sales team. And so we kind of linked up that way and saw eye to eye in what we were doing at that company, but also hit it off just kind of on an entrepreneurial, like, hey, we want to start something on our own and eventually make it our own and move over to it full time. And that's how Junk Raider, our junk removal company, was born back in 2018. And so we've been running that ever since and grown month over month, year over year, and really established an awesome presence and culture here in our local market in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so with that, you obviously teeter back and forth of like, how do you grow? Do you want to do this organically and just go city to city and stand up Junk Raider? As much as you can handle, buy the equipment, hire the people, rent out the spaces, or do you want to go the franchise route? So long story short, we went the franchise route. Earlier this year, there's a whole legal process you have to go through if you're not familiar with it. I'm learning everything I possibly can. It's a whirlwind. But as we sit here today, we're a company that obviously covers a large radius around Charlotte, North Carolina, but we're actively getting into other cities all over the country. And
world soon to come.
I was going to say world. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. But yeah, that's where we're at. And we do a lot around demolition as well, outside of the junk removal space. So you've got residential junk removal, you've got commercial junk removal. And then we obviously do, kind of an add-on service with that naturally is demolition. And we primarily stick to exterior demolition, more so on the residential side than we do commercial. Mobile homes, large sheds and barns, actual homes, brick built homes. And we do a little bit of land clearing as well. So that's really us in a nutshell, and happy to be here. Hopefully we give the audience some good nuggets of information.
Yeah, no, I mean, to be honest with you, we haven't yet encountered someone in the franchising space. So we're used to more, generational. We're here in one city, be it New Orleans, be it Atlanta, be it, New Jersey, etc. So maybe could you give us some of that wisdom as to why you guys decided to franchise and what some of those implications are that are applicable maybe to our audience who are debating that or considering it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we obviously teetered back and forth of how to do it or how we wanted to grow, right? Go organically and stand Junk Raider up on our own. It's just very capital intensive, as you can imagine. You need a few trucks in a market at least, right? We just bought a new box truck to put in a local market in Greensboro, North Carolina, $85,000 purchase, right? And so you're obviously not coming out of pocket 85 grand, just like if you're going to go buy a personal vehicle, unless of course you're strapped with cash and you're good to go. But you're putting something down, you're rolling it into a monthly payment. But nonetheless, it's a capital expense that's on your books. If you're going to go into different markets, you likely need at least some sort of physical location. We operate out of our home base or our actual homes here in Charlotte, so we don't have a rent per se. But if you move into other cities, you absolutely need a home base for folks to report into, whether that's a storage unit that you just rent or it's a flex space, like it's a warehouse with a little office, so you've got a rent payment that you're taking on. You've obviously got insurance and all sorts of other things that it takes to stand up the business. And so besides just the cost aspect of doing it in-house, you've obviously just got the speed, right? You can maybe open up a site or two a year if you do it in-house. Whereas with franchising, it's just the whole reason why franchising even exists is speed to market and scalability, right? You're giving the playbook to another individual that you know and trust, and you're going to support them kind of as their backbone, but this is their business and they're going to go start it up in Greensboro or Tampa or Dallas, and use your playbook and your brand to build out their business in those local markets. And so as you get, one franchisee and the second one, right, they can all be doing this in parallel. Whereas, like I mentioned, you can maybe stand up one or two. If we were doing this in-house per year, you could stand up 5 to 10. And then as you start to hockey stick really and get mature as a franchisor, you can start to bring on 30, 40, 50 cities a year with the franchising model. So it's, there's obviously negative implications or maybe things that you have to consider as you get into or start looking at franchising versus just, staying local. Maybe you go to the nearest city and open up internally. Absolutely, right? There's positives and negatives to both sides. With franchising, what I would say is like, I don't know that a lot of folks, including us, know really how expensive it is to get into it. You really have to start with a lot of money to end up making a lot of money in franchising. Right. And, a lot of folks just think, okay, I've got to spend money on an FDD, a franchise disclosure document. That's the legal document. Takes, could be anywhere from 15 grand to 50 grand, depending on the law firm you use. You've got to have an ops manual. In your world, marketing, right? You got to stand up a franchise specific website. You got to start doing SEO and Google ads and all sorts of other paid channels around the marketing side. But then ongoing, you just have a lot of infrastructure that you have to build to support franchisees. So you can't just like Ted and I, my business partner, it can't just be us at the helm with 100 franchisees that we're trying to support. There's a whole ecosystem.
Yeah, no way.
Are going to be brought on. Personnel is obviously the most expensive line item on anybody's P&L. You have to have people to effectively support a franchise. So a franchise system. So, to wrap that up, that's why we franchise, with just the scalability and the speed we could get into other markets. The implications are it's going to be expensive, and you're ultimately bringing folks into your company and your brand and your culture that you don't really know until they're in there. And you could get a bad egg in the basket who, tarnishes your brand a little bit. They're not happy. They're not profitable. And now you've got a legal issue on your hand, right? That's a lot of the reasons why, the folks that maybe you're used to working with in the demolition space, they've stayed local, and I shouldn't say local, but they've kept everything in house and haven't franchised for the reasons I just mentioned, right? They don't want to mess up. They don't want to rock the boat if it's not necessary. And they're profitable, right? It's not everybody wants to be in 50 cities and 50 states or 100 cities, whatever. They're very happy doing, I think you mentioned one of your clients is maybe potentially doing 20 or 30 million in revenue or 100 million, right? Like that's significant amount of money and not having to be a franchisor. So you keep all the profits in those scenarios. But yeah, those are kind of
the control, the profits, all that. But in credit to you, I totally get it. Like even Chick-fil-A, which sells itself, they still have, to an extent, it is a unique franchise model.
Yeah.
Where it's very unique, let's say that. But something as good as that sells itself, they still are bought in to an extent in a funky way of a franchise.
Oh yeah.
Subway's a different story. No wonder why they got to franchise that. But
yeah. Just look at the Chick-fil-A like vetting process, right? Not anybody can go buy a Chick-fil-A. And so like outside of all the collateral and the documentation that's been built to weed out the bad eggs and attract the good people that they want as franchisees, like all of that took time and money and effort, but they've got a boatload of people that just work in that vein, just vetting new franchisees. And then once they're awarded a territory, there's a whole different team on like the delivery and execution side that are there to support the franchisees. So yeah, Chick-fil-A is a great model, but it was very expensive for them to get into franchising, and it's even more expensive for them to still be franchising, if that makes sense. It's a wild world for sure.
Yeah, well, and Truett Cathy kind of built a good thing for himself and then expanded. So tell me about that with you guys. Obviously, you built a good thing, you built something strong and integral, and then you go scale it. Not all franchisors do that. They try to like hawk something off before they've even built their thing.
Yeah.
So with you guys, how hard was it to build something really tight and systems and processes and things like that to then be able to replicate it to others?
Yeah, I mean, with Ted in my background, right? He's more marketing, I'm more sales operations. Like, I can't say that it was tough to build, but what we did right was that we gave it time, and we didn't start Junk Raider with the thought process that, hey, we're eventually going to franchise this, or we want to be in 100 cities in the next 3 years. Like, we didn't have that. We wanted to start something on our own, prove that concept, and make sure that was successful. And that's Junk Raider Charlotte. And so we've been doing that almost 6 years now, and we've obviously really proven that concept. Probably gave it 2 to 3 years longer than we probably needed to prove the concept before we could go and grow. But that's the biggest thing, is just giving it the time that it deserves to mature. And so you can, present to other folks, franchisee candidates that want to potentially come into Junk Raider, what they call an item 19 in the FDD, which is a financial representation of what this business can potentially generate. You can't really put on paper attractive financials if you just go and start a junk removal company or any company and you only do it for a year or two. It's going to take 30, 60, 90 days to even ramp and start getting jobs. And then you got to go execute them. You got to get paid. I mean, you're at the 12-month mark very quickly. What are you going to represent in an FDD financially that makes anybody else look at it and be like, oh, that's amazing. There's a huge track record of success. Like, it's just been a year. So I think that's the biggest key, is like, making sure you get the local market you chose. Make sure you do that right for a number of years, and then move into a franchising model that now you have years and years of financial data that you can present to people that say, look, we've proven this concept. Here are the numbers to back that. Do with those numbers what you will, but we're eager to replicate this from city to city. It just makes it more attractive for folks.
That is cool. And who is the ideal, I guess you'd say, franchisee? Like, what does that person look like? What's their typical background or net worth and things like that?
It's a good question, because we're what they call an emerging brand, right? So we just started franchising this year. So we can't look back at, the last 3 or 4 years and say, look, we brought on 50 franchisees and 75% of them come from the corporate world, or 75% of them are private investors, right? What I can give you is that what we think our ideal profile is going to be is somebody that's kind of a blend between kind of corporate, what they call in the franchising space, refugee, right? Folks that have maybe they're in their mid 30s, late 30s into their 40s, and they're at like mid-level manager to VP level. And they've realized, oh crap, I've done this corporate ladder thing for 10, 15 years. I'm still just a number, even though I'm making a decent income and I've got a high status. This isn't mine and it's disposable. I could be kicked out tomorrow by an acquisition or a downsize or whatever. I want to start
nothing to show for it. Ridiculous taxes every year. No way to, there's a lot of pros and a lot of cons.
Yep. So that person, we're actively looking for to bring into the fold, but that person also has to have kind of a level of blue collar, mantra to them, right? This is junk removal is exactly what it sounds like you're hauling stuff into a truck and taking it off site. So the task itself is very blue collar. You either need a network of people that you can deploy from day one that go out and do these jobs and you manage it from more of a business perspective, or you're going to have to be on the truck, in those early 30, 60, 90 days as you build up your field teams, like what Ted and I did in the early days. So there's kind of an element of like, you need to be business savvy. Maybe you're a corporate refugee, maybe you're a private investor and you've got, kind of this business acumen to you, but you got to be willing to get out in the field and get your hands dirty a little bit. So that ideal profile for us is going to be anybody from, like low to mid 30s up to low to mid 40s, probably, looking for an opportunity to divest their money, their capital into business ownership. I think that's probably the key, is like, when you talk about investing and having a diverse portfolio of your financial dollars, like people don't think about business ownership much. At least I didn't back in the day, right? I thought about stocks, bonds. You look at crypto now, like crypto's an investment. real estate. Like those are, tried and true. Everybody kind of knows about those investment strategies. Nobody really looks at business ownership as one. And so that's kind of the ideal candidate we're looking to pull in, as somebody that recognizes, hey, I've got some real estate, I've got some stocks, but like I still want to diversify even further, and business ownership's a great way to do it. I can get 20, 30, 40% return on my investment. I'll have something substantial, almost a physical asset that I could maybe sell at some point, or just continue to bolt on more units to. And so it's that person that's got a business acumen, but also a little bit of blue collar to them that that'll be successful in our junk raider franchising system.
Okay, awesome. And I guess for our audience, obviously we have demolition owners and things like that. There's always a push and pull. We work with our clients on this so they don't have so many of the peaks and valleys. But as we know, in more large scale demolition, there are net payments of net 60, net 90, net 120, and things like that. It can get kind of crazy. So it creates peaks and valleys for payroll and team members. Yeah. I'm curious on your end, I wonder, would demo companies be of interest or a target that could invest in your franchise from the prospects of just the junk aspect? Where they could say, hey, we work with Chayton and his team, or we don't, what have you. We notice that we have these terms of payment that can kind of give us lulls in employment and keeping our teams busy.
Yeah.
Could someone like that approach you guys maybe, down the line or sometime soon and say, hey, man, what you're doing incorporates what we do to an extent, but additionally, we love the idea of the junk because that's not going to be lulls. We're going to get paid rather quickly.
Yep.
Is that in the wheelhouse?
Absolutely, because in really any sort of like construction type company, whether that's demo or you're actually building a structure, a home, a corporate building, whatever the case may be, they're all of them are consuming a junk removal service in some form or fashion. Most of the time, demo companies and construction companies that build things are grabbing dumpsters. Like that's their way of getting rid of the debris, is having a dumpster sitting on site. We don't offer dumpsters. We offer our trucks and a 2-man crew to come out same day, next day, and pick up the items wherever they are on the property. But again, the GCs and the demo companies, they're all using dumpsters, and or companies like us today. So as an investor profile, like somebody that could absolutely tack this on as another investment to their existing demolition or even construction company, is 100% a great play for us, and obviously somebody that would be a great fit for us because they already understand the space, the home services space. Yeah, absolutely, man. I think it makes a whole lot of sense. And then to your point around just cash flow, those demo jobs are higher ticket items, especially if you're in the commercial space. Those companies absolutely expect a net 30 payment term almost always, if not more. And so you are floating cash often. In the junk removal space, especially on the residential side, you don't leave site until you get paid, right? I come out to your house today and do a clean out for you. As soon as everything's loaded in the truck, I'm taking a card payment on the phone and it's run and it's processed, right? That money's in our bank account today. So yeah, the GCs and demo companies tacking junk removal on as another service line could absolutely, kind of help their portfolio overall from a balance sheet perspective, because they are getting cash flow from those junk removal jobs, even though they're floating cash on the demo side with the residents, whoever, residential or commercial clients they're working with.
Okay. Yeah. It's crazy how many of the guests that come on, and obviously just people that we know in the industry who we hear that thing of like, the not so great demo companies seem to be taking jobs and losing money, breaking even, or in certain cases, it sounds sad, but they go out of business because they do this so often just to keep their team members working and running around and able to put food on the plate. But then they do these extensions where they're overextending, or it's not the perfect fit, but they're accepting it for the sake of doing that. And then they're catching lawsuits, or they're having, these problems and things with their team members who maybe aren't qualified for their project, but they're taking jobs so regularly that are not cherry picking, that are not sweet spot. So just kind of an idea, because you guys are so close, and a lot of our demolition companies, they primarily do demolition. Some of them are homes, some of them are trailers, some of them are big buildings. And there's definitely, where they have an array of those things. But if they could install a system that can help with the cash flow, can help with their team, running regularly, and they're getting paid quickly, it's like the same kind of mechanisms with the machines and things. They have the gear. That's pretty cool. That might be of interest to a lot of our listeners, and
Yeah, you're
learning
spot
from
on.
you.
And to the point about cash flow, right? Like we do it as well on the demo side. Like we're extending payment terms. We just did a pool demolition job that was $7,000, something like that, and we're not going to get paid. We just finished that job yesterday. We're not getting paid for at least 15 days. We had a net 15-day agreement with the client. So we're doing it as well. But that's where, to your point, those that kind of do that all the time and don't have the business acumen to figure out unique ways to keep cash flow healthy, whether you've got a line of credit with a bank, whether you have other ways with clients to incentivize them to pay early. A unique way is like, hey, your bill is $50,000. We typically collect, a quarter of that up front, a quarter of that halfway through the project, and then the back half of it's due net 30 on payment terms. Or hey, if you want to pay all of this up front, or even at the end of the project, like on the day that it's done, we'll give you a 2% discount on the bill. Like there's unique ways that you can figure out how to get that cash flow, even outside of your genius point about investing in a junk removal company that can, as an additional service line. That's genius. But yeah, that's where that business acumen, a lot of folks get into things like demo, junk removal, just really any home service type stuff, gutter cleaning, garage repair, epoxy flooring. Like a lot of people get into these businesses and they're blue collar type individuals that haven't invested in themselves from a business perspective to really understand the business side of things, which is cash flow, P&Ls. How do you maintain that? And so they don't develop these relationships with banks and other entities and stuff to make sure that they can float those, net terms that are oftentimes existing with commercial accounts that they're doing this work for, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's very interesting. A thing that came up in the Lost episode was, in a past life, I had worked for a company that did factoring, and it's fantastic for some, it's terrible for others. I'll be very upfront with that. The sweet spot client there was a client, it was in logistics, so trucking companies, mid to large to even some cases small. Yeah. It could even be one trucker in certain cases, but they would be getting paid by some of the brokers on net 90 or net 60 or something. And for some of their brokers, they get paid rather quickly. Net 30, they could accept that. But even if you have a few trucks in your fleet, or if you're just a one rig kind of guy, you're stuck if you're waiting. It's a great payday, but it's 90 days. You have a truck, you have insurance, diesel, rising inflation. So we talked about it last time. I'm really going to look for a guest, if any of you guys out there do this or know someone who does. But I'd be curious to find out about factoring in the demolition space, particularly for those larger type of demo companies, because I hear it all the time. I've heard horror stories of companies going out of business because they had just a few of those net 120s or net 90s, and the little stuff didn't come in, or they didn't have a business like yours that could help them with the cash flow.
Yeah.
So, well, man, it'd be interesting.
The other one point to that is people. I would highly encourage you, if you have the means and the network, to find somebody that has that mindset. It's not me, candidly. I'm not that guy, but I know that I'm not that guy. And at some point, my company will bring in a higher level senior individual that knows, hey, here's how you structure a deal so that we aren't floating money like you've done in the past, right? So I guess my suggestion to these demo companies is get somebody, if it's not you as the business owner, get somebody in-house that can help you structure deals, and also knows just like the external partners that you need, like banks and other lenders and folks that can give you, access to cash and capital as you need it, so that you're not, mandating from your clients like, hey, we 100% due upon completion, and you're losing the bid because customers aren't willing to do that. Like, you can't go that route as well. So I would 100% suggest that, you find somebody senior to bring into the fold. They're expensive, obviously, and that's another factor that you have to consider. But whenever you have the means to be able to get that person, I'd highly suggest bringing them in.
Yeah. Well, I had a podcast with a guy last night. His name is John Lombardo, out in the New Jersey area. And what he said is he's been in business since it was roughly 2000, 2001. He said, hey, look, we're like CarMax. This is what we take. There is no negotiation. Like, this is a deal for us. Yeah. If they're willing to accommodate that type of deal, great. Awesome. If they're not, that's fine.
Yeah.
We don't need to take that. Another guest, he had recently said, this is effectively the best way to operate when you're getting bigger. Is it's cheaper to keep her almost in a way where like we don't need to take deals. Like we'll extend, and if they're not willing to meet us, not halfway, they have to meet us on what these terms are. They're not willing to, they can work with some other, more amateur company perhaps, or someone who's going to just cost a fortune because they have to build in some of the interest and fluff in the pricing because they're waiting 90 days. Yeah. So very, very interesting. Let's kind of dig a little bit deeper in the demo. So you guys, in your current state and maybe even in soon future state, what is a demolition job you guys are interested in? And what are demolition jobs you're not interested in?
So we're currently interested in exterior demo specifically, and more so on the residential side. Can we take on commercial jobs? Absolutely, but we haven't necessarily marketed ourselves that way. But we're doing a lot of large barn demolition jobs, mobile home demolition jobs, existing regular built homes, whether that's on a slab or foundation, whatever, brick homes. We do all of that type of work, including obviously, as part of that, anything that's inside the home. We handle all of the haul away because we're a junk removal company. We do a lot around the land clearing space, exterior items like I mentioned. We just finished an interior, an in-ground pool demolition and fill project, so things like that. We don't do much around interior demolition if that's only what a customer is looking for. Like, hey, I'm getting ready to update my kitchen. Come in here and demo all the kitchen so I can get it ready for the next thing. That's not what we're doing yet. But that's really kind of our play in terms of a company. And if you ask why, it's really because of our personnel. Like that's who we have at our disposal, and that's available with the skill set to go out and perform that type of work. But as we grow and look at additional demolition services, interior demo could become one, and then obviously expanding just the volume and the size of the infrastructure that we're currently doing. You can obviously start to look at, I think pre-roll, you're saying one of your customers is on like a skyscraper job. That's obviously way outside of our capability today. But on the commercial side, you start looking at where a company shutting down an old warehouse. We could certainly do that. Companies looking to shut down a retail storefront. No problem. We'll go in there and do that. So all good stuff, hopefully.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I love that you guys have a focus where it's like rinse and repeat, because some of this crazy stuff, the big stuff, it may sound appealing, but it could be a lot. I mean, from, the electric to the plumbing to the capping, really just trying to take care of all these extra things.
Yeah.
I was talking to an individual who works for a demolition company out in Texas, and man, he was telling me the arenas they've done, the skyscrapers, the hotels, the hospitals. Some of this stuff is intricate, like the hospitals. It's like we have a new hospital and the one next to it, which is attached through a sky bridge. We have to take the old one down while not impacting the new one at all, from water to electric to, utilities, all that stuff. Crazy. So I do love how you guys have kind of a focus, and slowly but surely you're kind of checking outside of that focus, seeing what's capable. But it makes sense with your team. Yeah, you have experts in what you're expert at.
Yeah.
And as you kind of creep out of that, you can get other experts and help you kind of grow the right way, grow strong, not just grow fast and grow weak, but grow strong.
Yeah.
I love that. That's cool.
Yeah, on that hospital example, right? You absolutely need somebody that's more specialized in that than we currently are today. And for that company that actually goes out there and does it, yes, it's a more complex job, but your ticket's higher. That's why you've obtained those skills to be able to take on those types of projects. So kudos to the folks that do that. And what I would say is that, honestly, getting into demolition, like when we did many years ago, we obviously didn't know, or I shouldn't say obviously, but we didn't know the market for demo. And I would say the average citizen and consumer, you're driving around the streets, the places you shop, the places you go to meet people, whatever, you don't see it often, but there is so much work out there around demolition. It's insane.
Oh yeah.
Right. And it's one of those things where it's one of those industries that we know about, but you don't really know the money flowing through it. and it's really wild just to think about. No real point there. I just thought I'd mention it.
No, it's fun. I'm the
Yeah.
same as you. It's like, I love, because in marketing, let's be honest, everyone and their sister markets for realtors or mortgage or whatever, restaurant. Like, I've been there and done that. I started my business initially in 2017, and we were an everything for everyone. And then we got mature and said, hey, we're no longer in elementary school. Like, no more games, no more playing around. Like, we got to get a little bit more serious. We looked at our client base and we said, who are the ones who never have a problem paying us?
Yeah.
Who are the ones who literally, if we get them one deal a month, which it's a big problem if they only get one deal a month, but if we do, they got to fire their sales guy, but or the owner's got to stop picking up the phone.
Yeah.
But yeah, if we get them one deal, they're ecstatic. They're like, hey, that was $100,000 deal. We paid you $2,500 last month or $5,000 last month, what have you. It depends on their package. But yeah, they're ecstatic. They're like, hey, our margins are 20%. If I paid you $5,000 last month and we only got one deal, I netted 15K profit.
Yeah.
And you helped me get a revenue of 100 in 1 month. And most months we're getting a few deals. So some of the deals, a lot of our guys are doing houses starting at 15 to 20 grand per pop.
Yeah.
But then they also, like you talked about, warehouses, industrial, pools. Pool's an interesting one for a lot of our clients. They don't necessarily do those. They even give me flack on houses sometimes. But again, the beauty is they have so many options and opportunities to get the cherry pick. And like we talked about before the podcast, there's always options to refer. But by all means, you guys are going to be working into interior, but I would be shocked if you didn't have someone who can maybe give you a kickback or, take you to steak dinner every, once a month or once a week and say, hey, thanks for bringing over 5 deals or 2 deals or 3 deals for interior a month.
Yeah.
I may not have a big team, but you're putting food on the table of my family.
Yeah.
My brother and I do the interior stuff, and you guys focus on what you focus on. And you give each other love back and forth, referrals back and forth.
Well, that's true for a lot of other services too, Chayton. Like, I mean, we've got our go-to partner that we refer business to when customers are just looking for like, I just need gravel brought in. Like, can we help you? Sure. Like, we have trucks that can transport gravel, but it's not super efficient. Like, we've got Padulas here local that's what they do. Like, they've got the trucks, they've got the gravel. Here's them, go contract with them directly. So like things like gravel, fill dirt, I mean, all sorts of also, it's amazing the leads and the conversations that come in when you market yourself as X inside of home services, junk removal inside of home services, roofing, handyman, gutter cleaning, whatever. Like whatever it is that we chose to be 6 years ago, we chose junk removal, but anything in home services, it's amazing the calls that we'll get for things outside of junk removal, especially from past junk removal customers that, had a great experience with us with junk removal, but now they need like French doors installed or they want their house pressure washed. Like they're calling the people that they kind of already know and had a good experience with. And yeah, they'll start with junk rate and be like, your guys were great. They look like, good guys
put together.
Simply do this work. Do you guys do a pressure washing job? And we may or may not take it on, but if we don't, we certainly have folks that we refer it out to. So it's a crazy kind of the lead generation tool that exists because of whatever the service line is that you've chosen to go into within home services specifically.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you could almost not do your core business and just be a referral service. Like,
yeah, for sure.
You wouldn't have all the good reviews and pictures and case studies and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, that's what I saw in my world is I was like, oh, this marketing stuff's cool because if you have that good face and you actually pick up the phone, which is a big deal, and you get back to people, maybe you do automations like texting them and, that kind of stuff. Even with our clients, we'll have the owners, do ringless voice drops. Like how cool you call a demolition company who does 50 million a year. And yeah, it's automated, but it seems very personal to the customer. Or they get a ringless voice drop from the owner of the demo company after the project is done. His internal team simply goes in the CRM, drag and drop, deal's done, great. And the owner says, hey, from the bottom of our heart, from our family's heart, from our team's heart, we really want to thank you for entrusting us to take down your home in a safe way that the neighbors aren't upset. And if you have a second, we'd really love that you share that on Google and give us a review or something like that. And they're like, man, I never met this owner. he's a big guy. He's running a $50 million a year company, and he
Yeah.
left me a voicemail. Like stuff like that goes a long way. Automated letters, as an example, will help our clients kind of get some insight on that. Is there are services that will handwrite letters, and in your case, Davis, maybe there's jobs where you guys say, hey, at $10,000 or more, $20,000 or more, what have you, we're going to simply drag and drop them in the CRM, and they're going to get a letter from us, the owners, and your franchisees can obviously do things like this. And it's literally a drag and drop. And for the franchisee, what does it cost you? $3 for a nice handwritten letter that gets mailed. You don't touch anything.
Yeah.
And guess what? It says in there, if you had a great experience, we'd love a review.
Yeah.
After you've put the icing on the cake at the top.
Yep.
That kind of stuff. I mean, man, if you can buy, I don't want to say buy per se, but get reviews for $4, those reviews, you would pay $40 for reviews in certain cases or more. They go a long way. So yeah, really, really kind of cool, innovative, high tech, but also low touch from a client's perspective. My God, those Google reviews, they go so long. And if you're strategic, as you guys are with the franchise model, you have to have systems and strategy.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things just go crazy, crazy far. And when you have 100 franchisees, that could positively affect 2,000 extra reviews every single month.
Yep.
And that, of course, is going to help their businesses like crazy. When they're helped, you're helped.
You're touching on something there, Chayton, within just the business side of running a home services company that a lot of home service company owners don't give attention to. We say it all the time, like, to be successful in home services, like, yes, you got to do the work in the field well, but like, you just have to do all the easy stuff good. Answer the phone, get back to clients very timely, be transparent about your pricing, be upfront once you get to the home about how you price, right? Show up uniformed, let them know you're on the way, process the transaction in the field, automate some of that stuff. A lot of home service companies just fail at that all the time. And so when you start to talk about, your world a little bit with marketing, Google reviews in general, a lot of business owners in that home services space aren't giving the attention that it deserves to reviews. And that is a massive, massive disservice you're doing to yourself, because the world runs on reviews today. Everything's online. I want to go and get pizza tonight. I want to try a new spot. I'm going to look at, the top 10 to 15 Google search results. And undoubtedly, if I see a pizza spot with a cool name and it's got 5-star reviews, but it's only got 1 review, I'm going to be like, I don't know how much weight I can give to that. Versus the next one that's got 4.7 stars, but it's got like 1,050 reviews. I'm like, that's pretty good, right? That's proven, I'm subconsciously as a consumer going through this process in my brain of how to choose my pizza restaurant solely based on the reviews. Like, it's the reviews. So to your point, I mean,
website.
Website.
We don't need to go on Facebook and see a bunch of stuff. I mean, we tell clients that all the time. Like, we're not a foo-foo kind of agency. Like, we focus on the stuff simply that gets the phones ringing and gets your email inbox flooded with opportunities that you actually care to work with.
Yeah.
Sure, sometimes employment opportunities come through. I've had to learn Spanish to a big extent just for that, because we do see stuff that comes in primarily through email, and work is referenced, which is great, because like we talked about before, in the demolition space, getting good team members can be challenging. Keeping good team members can be challenging. So it's a funny kind of irony, and something we've had to do internally is not just do marketing to get the leads or deals or estimate opportunities, but also we do strategically have a slice of our offerings to help get employment always running. Because we're not here, as you guys aren't, we're not here to just say, all right, we're going to make a few bucks from a client and let's hope it goes somewhere. We actually contractually obligate our clients to auto update their offerings with us, because we will not take a client if they're there to be stagnant. So our upsell is great. We double our revenue every 6 months with the client. We do cap it after a certain number of upgrades, because you don't need to spend $20,000 a month in most markets as a demo company, whether that's ad spend or management fees or SEO or whatever.
Yeah.
We do cap it. We only have 3 packages and a 4th package for the big behemoths, the enterprise level. But yeah, you can do a lot of damage, and we want you to be bought into scaling. So how do we help you? Because otherwise you're going to say to me before the next upgrade, you're going to say, man, it's awesome. You've changed our business. We're double in size from a revenue, but my team isn't double.
Yeah.
So we really help pace that while we help grow the top line. And
yeah,
it's important. I guess we'll round off in just a few minutes here. So employment, can you help me understand that from your business and then from the franchisees? Like, we just discovered this, frankly, not that long ago, that employment, we needed to have a slice in that. Do you guys have any good systems or mechanisms to help your franchisees ramp that up?
In terms of just making sure they hire the right people and manage them properly?
Yeah, obviously there's probably some systems around here as Indeed, go to these networking events, go to these communities, but what does that look like for your business or franchisee that you recommend to get the right people on the team?
Yeah, there's definitely, you start with the profile, right? You start with the profile of the person that you want for the role that you need to hire for. Is it a truck team member hauling junk? Is it somebody in your office doing phone calls? Like, what are you hiring for? And then we can obviously blanket the market and the online channels with the right rec, speaking the right language about our culture. And so absolutely, as a franchisor supporting our franchisees, we're fully involved in that process because for us, what we're really trying to replicate in going the franchise route is building a bunch of junk raiders all over the country in these cities the exact way we built it. And that is totally dependent on the people you hire. We wouldn't be the what we are today with over 1,200 5-star Google reviews if it weren't for our people in the field. And we've been very selective of who we've brought into this fold. And if you go look at other junk removal companies, like it's turnover heavy. Like, you might have somebody for 3 to 6 months come in, they go and get something better because, this one over here is paying them $1 an hour more. We're just not like that. Most of our guys have been with us since the start. We've had some turnover, but they're here for 2, 3, 4, 5 years and or ongoing. And obviously we work with contractors a little bit if needed, but what we've built is really, you start friends and family and who's in your network. There's nobody better than a referral that you kind of know. So that's, I
feel like this is an MLM. Here we go.
Yeah, this is like the first network. That's the first suggestion to any franchisee is like, who do you know, man? Like, get out in your network and just, it doesn't even have to be like somebody you drink beers with every Friday night. It could be, your mom's best friend's son has a friend that, is looking to get into the home services space and wants a job. Like, it could be that. Like, that's always better than the random candidate you get off of Indeed. But nonetheless, you have to exist there and also consider those resumes that come through. But yeah, it's a culture thing and it's a fit thing. And there's definitely a profile that you want to, we've been very successful in pulling folks from like the restaurant industry, specifically Chick-fil-A. We were talking about that because they're so like, the business is such like, yes, we need to check the boxes of like, are you physically capable to pick up a 50, 100-pound couch? Can you load it into a high, a box truck that's kind of high off the ground? Can you do this stuff physically? Sure. But 90% of the job is how you interface with customers. And we want our brand represented well in the field. And what we found is that the restaurant business, like, that's all that you're doing. You're going through that Chick-fil-A line, you're putting a smile on. How are you talking to customers? You walk into a restaurant, you're a hostess. How are you greeting people? Like, that's the business, that's customer service. And so we've been very successful when we've had to go outside of friends and family to the market and the open market and just pull in candidates, kind of checking those boxes of, what's your experience been like on the customer service side? And it doesn't have to be restaurant focused. It could be really anything that's just customer facing, but that's where we've seen success.
Okay. Awesome. Love that. Well, we're getting towards the end here. Are there any little tidbits that you want to just kind of include or let the audience know? Obviously, let us know how they can follow you, get in touch with you guys, that kind of thing. But anything prior to those little
I think
we'll say?
Yeah, sure. I think you mentioned maybe pre-roll that you'd like some feedback just on kind of what I would have done differently or 2 to 3 things that maybe, if I could go back and say, hey, this would have been helpful to know. One would just be to really look at hiring a sales rep sooner. I think in our business, outbound prospecting is not something that folks think about actively. It's very reactive. Like, make sure you exist on Google on the first page. Make sure you've got good reviews. Make sure your website's optimized, all that stuff, because it's a reactive business. Like, somebody needs junk removal today. Who are they calling? Whoever's on Google. Like, you have to exist there, and you have to put a lot of time and effort into that. But more of our business, strategic business, is corporate accounts. So like a Walmart, a Publix, a Target, whatever. They all have junk removal needs at their store properties. Who's taking care of that? So we need, like, more than likely, you need a sales rep going outbound to these customers and being like, look, you're fragmented here. You've got your local stores reaching out to various vendors to get junk removal done every time they need it. Let's streamline that for you. So I would have hired or looked to hire a sales rep specifically focused on outbound partnerships sooner than we have. I would have also expanded Junk Raider to another city sooner. Like I told you, we just moved into Greensboro as another corporate owned location. I would have done that many years ago and just continued to prove the concept. It's obviously, beneficial to us from a profit perspective and revenue perspective to be in another market. And then lastly, just on the financial side, kind of circling back on that comment about demolition companies floating cash. A lot of those larger tickets are net 30, net 60, 90-day terms. I would have, at least in our business, even on the residential side, if we got like a large house clean out from a customer that was maybe $5,000, $10,000, like, we all the time were just, we were going in as skinny as possible, trying to put in our best bid. Didn't think twice about, like, oh, this customer may take 30 days to pay. We just wanted the business, right? So I would have negotiated those bids a little bit more closely in the early days, knowing what I know now. And obviously that's standard practice for us now. But I would have done that a lot sooner, back in the early days. But yeah, that's what I would end it with, those 3 nuggets.
Okay. Yeah. And on that last little bit there, in my business, like, it's crazy. Maybe we're spoiled, maybe we're not, but we don't work unless we get paid up front. So, like, on the aspect of terms, I guess, I don't know, I've never even considered any other terms. It's like, hey, for us to start your marketing, like, if you're trying to get $1 million extra a month in your business, which is very achievable, I'm not going to front the money and hope that your sales team does the job and hope that you guys do estimates that are competitive. Like, it doesn't make sense. So maybe just to our audience in general, take some wisdom from the marketing world, where we literally don't do anything unless we get paid prior to the work starting.
Yeah.
You may not have to do that. I think that that's kind of a little weird fully in the space, but I talked to someone the other day, a guest on the podcast, and they said, we get 50% up front. Like, that is our term. And they're doing sometimes big deals. We have to get that met. And then we milestone after the 50%. So it's not a 50 and a 50, it's a 50 and then a 60 and a 70 and this and that. Yeah. Use some external mindsets or wisdoms, maybe even lawyers who are not in your market or in your industry as their mainstream. Have yours that does that, and then have one who's not in your market, or have some guidance or a mentor that's not in your space.
Yeah.
So that way they can look and go, help me understand, why would you do a job that's 120 days net or a 90-day net? Like, perhaps you just don't do those. Leave that for someone else and extend your terms that are more, more viable, be it 30 or 45 days or something. It doesn't always have to be 30s. Why don't we do a 45-day? So anyway, yeah, great wisdom. How can people get in touch with you, follow you? You have a podcast as well. Like, give us some of those shout outs for you.
Yeah, I'm all over the place, but probably the best way to find us is our website, www.junkraider.com. You can email me. I'll put that on here. My first initial last name, dfisher@junkraider.com. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all the social media platforms, just Davis Fisher. And if I don't easily pop up, put in Junk Raider after that, and I should pop up. But yeah, website or email is usually the best place to find us. So that's that.
Okay, now, do we find you? Are you going to be dancing on TikTok? Is that the only platform you dance? Everything else is business?
Yeah, I wish I did. We probably have a larger following than what we do, but no TikTok dancing. I do see those pop up in my feed a little bit, so I get a little entertainment out of it. But no, my TikTok is more so on, kind of what we're doing here, nuggets of information for business owners, behind the scenes look at like our junk removal business. Hopefully folks can gain some insights there, just into business building, starting a business, whatever. So I try to make it informational and educational as much as possible.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, the stuff that's applicable. Love it, love it. All right. Well, we're gonna sign off here in just a second. So thank you guys all for listening. Thank you, Davis, for coming on. And this has been another episode of Demolition Success Secrets. See you guys.
That's a wrap for this episode of Demolition Success Secrets. Stay tuned and subscribe for more explosive insights from our upcoming episodes. Until then, continue to blow up your demolition business and make the competition rubble in your path.